Ladies and gentlemen, I had to replace this section because we had a bunch of audio issues during the live broadcast, so I thought I'd re-record it, get rid of the old crap so that you can hear it in the way that it was intended to be. The point of this particular section was to have a little look at another game and attempt to leave WoW for this game. Give the game about 15 to 30 minutes to initially impress me and give me the idea I might want to stick around in it, and then there you go. Now, I'm going to start with EverQuest 2, because this game came out a couple of weeks before WoW, and honestly didn't do all that well. I mean, it certainly wasn't a complete disaster, but it's not really regarded as all that competitive. So I've got the trial here, and I'm going to have a quick go of it and see what happens. I'm going to create a new character, and I shall go through step by step and tell you what exactly is available. So on the create character screen, we've got a bunch of different races, a lot more than WoW does right here, and they are divided into three types: good, neutral, and evil. Now, the one that I want to play is the Froglock, because it's a frog. Yes, it is indeed a frog. It's about the closest to a Murloc you're going to get. That's fair enough. A Froglock in what appears to be skin-tight chainmail greaves. That's kind of disturbing. Probably not the sort of thing I was looking to see at this time in the day. With regards to customization, it seems to be fairly reasonable. In terms of the Froglock, obviously, there's not an awful lot you can customize. Head, eyes, eyebrow, lips, nose, skin pattern, color, size, etc., etc. Okay, so I shall make a large pink Froglock, because that makes sense. You can't really make them all that large. Apparently, the Froglocks are a force for good in the world of Narath, as to why I really cannot imagine. One looks particularly bizarre. Now, you have two choices of where you want to start if you pick the Froglock. There's the city of Kelethin and New Halas, which is apparently a new starting area. So we're going to head over to New Halas. Now, I haven't downloaded all of this, and this actually streams kind of like Guild Wars does, so I'm going to go to the place where I actually can play because I've streamed the content. Now, as regards to class choices, we've got a large number. I am told that race and class combinations do make a much bigger difference here, as in more traditional MMOs and RPGs than they do in WoW, where it's effectively cosmetic. Got a lot of different things available here: bards, clerics, druids, enchanters, monk, paladin, ranger, rogue, shadow knight, shaman, sorcerer, summoner, and warrior. Now, unlike WoW, they are willing to go down the road of, yes, you can't pick all classes with one particular alignment, or indeed alliance or horde choice. In this case, got a bunch of things I can't do. The Bruiser, can't have that. I'd say evil monk. The Coercer, which is an enchanter, can't have that either. The Inquisitor, the Shadow Knight, which is a class of its own, the Assassin, and as well as the Brigand, who are both rogue classes. Also the Defiler and the Necromancer. Can't have those. But I can have a bunch of other stuff that I'd imagine the evil guys don't get to get. And in this case, it's asked me to go down the line of a warrior, so I'm going to pick a Berserker right here, which is a DPS style of warrior. And here we go. Select the name, as you might imagine, and drop onto what appears to be two servers available on the EU side: Runny Eye and Split Paw, both of which are fairly light in terms of the numbers on it. Yes, that name has already been taken. Yes, I keep forgetting that. That was actually my character. So, Total Halibut it is. There we go. I did create a character on Friday for the show, but there you go. And create a new one just so that I can give you a description and rundown of what's going on. So again, the point of this is to see whether or not the starting area actually grabs me. One of the big problems I've got with WoW right now, for instance, is that the leveling up is incredibly dull. Now, in this case, I'm presented with a starting area which appears to be a particularly frosty island, and a big Welcome to EverQuest 2 message with a whole bunch of other stuff. Now, obviously there's this Legions of Narath card game, which is rather odd. I haven't tried that, I don't intend to, but it's rather interesting that it's in there to begin with. Also got a marketplace, and they start me off with some points. Bear in mind that this is a premium subscription game, but there is also a marketplace. If you are wondering how Blizzard got so greedy, well, you need only look at SOE, because they've been doing this for a lot longer than Blizzard has. Accept some quests, and I am in front of some halfling kind of thing, which is looking down at me with a very disparaging look on its face. Not particularly pleasant. Then again, if she was forced to stand around here all day staring at what appears to be a bizarre pink frog, then I don't really blame her. Where am I ask? I'm on a big chunk of floating ice and rock, dubbed Pilgrim's Landing. The boat was besieged by the Snow Orcs. Snow Orcs? Really? And destroyed while it was on its way to the New Halas dock. Yes, thank you for your help, blah blah blah. Okay, and we don't want to attack the orcs right now. She doesn't want to let me do it. So I've got to accept a quest to go speak to some other dude. So here we go. Have a look around here. Obviously, this is graphically limited because I don't have the high-resolution client, which apparently looks very nice indeed. You can hear the frog noises are rather odd. I wonder who they got to voice act this. There would appear to be some kind of giant enemy crabs right here that I'll attack. So let's have a look at the combat system. Now, I've got a ranged mode and I've got a melee mode. So I'll switch over to ranged right here, and that switches me to a bow, at which point I get attacked by this crab. And I do start to get battle music, which is kind of nice that they do bring in that incidental musical moment there. Now, as regards to the combat, bear in mind, this did come out at the same time as WoW, and the combat system appears to be nigh identical. It's laggy, which is something I do have a problem with. It doesn't feel quite as meaty as WoW, and that's kind of embarrassing considering. My ability to do a riposte and a couple of abilities that allow me to do things like add a bleeding dot there. Combat is also very, very slow indeed. This is, that said, a level 4 mob that I'm attacking right here. Funny thing is, the level 4 mob is doing barely anything to me. It's just taking me a long time to kill. Now, going against a level 4 mob as a level 1 in WoW would generally result in you dying horrendously. It would also not have that horrible clicking sound of this damn crab. I'll eventually actually kill the crab. There we go. And it is dead. The beast has been slain. I'd say combat, fairly similar to World of Warcraft, especially with the melee class. Nothing particularly surprising. Now, what I do have is there's a piece of weathered timber on the ground. I can apparently activate this, so I'm going to do that right here. I can either chop it or examine it. So, apparently there is a forestation or deforestation skill. And it would be chopping at it, but just had an axe appear in my hand and didn't actually do anything. But there you go, I now have a piece of chopped wood. So evidently you start with a few gathering skills, which you do not do, of course, in World of Warcraft. There's also a creature den here, and apparently I can trap something with this. So I'm trapping what is inside here, and I'm going to trap a rawhide leather pelt. I wasn't aware that the rawhide leather pelt was a living creature. Apparently it is. Evidently it was scurrying around without a care in the world until I stole it. We'll now sell it. Chopping some more wood as well. Ah, there we go. The chopping animation's actually working this time. A fairly reasonable chopping animation. I'll give it that. That's a point in its favour. Anyway, let's go talk to this. Now, the real reason why I'm doing this is a new starting area, as far as I can tell. There was a splash screen for this new halal area or whatever. It's a second potential starting area. And I wanted to see what they could do with the starting area and whether after 5 or 6 years they have changed it to make it a little bit different. As it turns out, it doesn't look like they have right now. I've now leveled up for no apparent reason whatsoever, so evidently killing one crab and speaking to someone was enough to ding, so there you go. How are you busting rocks? Okay, go and beat up some elementals for the hell of it, and you get 13 copper for it. So I got a level, doesn't appear to be... Are there any talents in this game? I'm just looking at the inventory screen. Inventory screen is fairly generic, as you might imagine. Map screen is as well. Now, as regards to the UI, it's fair as far as I can tell. It's not bad, per se. It's got the same kind of bars and mini-map and your experience bar and a whole bunch of tips in the top right-hand corner. Again, it's something that you would expect. A bunch of skills here, which... This is something that's a little bit unusual. Look at the skill tree right here. It's not so much a skill tree, but a list. I have skills in avoidance and combat. Combat allows me to level up a bunch of different things. Aggression, I've got 5 out of 10 in aggression. This is how well your taunts will affect monsters. Crushing, which is how well I can use crushing weapons. Focus, how well I can maintain concentration and cast spells. Piercing, ranged, and slashing as well. And my avoidance is parry and defense. Now, parry and defense obviously is the same as you've got in WoW, but the idea that you can level up your taunts is interesting. Now, I assume that you do that simply via practice. Yes, indeed, I'm getting better at slashing, defense, parry right here. Let's use my taunt. There we go. I've got some points in aggression as well. So, all of this kind of thing is tied into a performance-based set of skills which level up as you go. Now, I've got to level 2, so apparently I've learned Berserker Rage. So, yes, my frog is looking very angry indeed, beating on this pile of rocks right here as the dramatic music goes on in the background. I'm not all that impressed, honestly. You can't try and pretend that these aren't rats. They're just rock-shaped rats, a big pile of rocks. So, in the meantime, while I auto-attack right here, it's funny that emotes are actually available as hotkeys, and there are 13 pages of them. There's also a set of macros as well. I'll look else and see what's available there. Stats, fairly reasonable as well. Details, prefix and suffix titles available. Too interesting there. Inventory, recipes, quest journal, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, now, I'm looking at knowledge. Here's the abilities and combat arts. This is just my skills. Nothing that should really surprise anybody. Yes, I do start with mining and collecting and all that kind of thing, as well as a Hearthstone-style spell. Faction available? Yeah, we don't care about that either, so there you go. What it does have is a role-playing tag, which is interesting, something that the World of Warcraft would probably use, considering the issues role-players have had lately. Now, the real problem that I have with this is not so much that the combat system is dated, because WoW's is as well, but that they haven't really made any effort at all to differentiate themselves from World of Warcraft at the early game. Considering WoW has such a high ratio of people that actually leave in the early game, you'd think that they would do something about it. I'd like to take an example of Dungeons & Dragons Online. That game has a fantastic starting area. They completely redid it because they realized the initial one wasn't very good. And as a result, when they launched their free-to-play, they've done really well for themselves. In the case of this, if this is their redone starting area, then I'm not impressed. It's a bland and barren icy wasteland. The quests are incredibly dull, and it starts off with kill rats, and it continues with kill rats. I've done the quests after this, and that's all it is. Kill rats, farm rats, blah blah blah, and infinitum. It's not impressive. Now, I would think that any game that wants to try and compete with WoW and draw people away from WoW has got to provide a different experience. For me, because this doesn't, it's asking me to do another leveling set with a game that's very similar to World of Warcraft in order to get to an end game that may or may not be better. That is a really hard thing to stomach. It's not something that I would bother with. If I were to try something else, it would have to be something that's sufficiently different to World of Warcraft to justify me investing the time. And stuff like EVE, stuff like DDO, they all are sufficiently different to WoW to justify me as a veteran WoW player going to them. I understand that some people might argue that familiarity is important, but in this case I don't believe that that works out. It doesn't work for the game in general. This is not familiarity, this is banality. This is a really boring starting area that treats you like an idiot. And yet, a lot of the people coming to this game are going to be people that have already played WoW. I think every game in future has got to assume that their players have played World of Warcraft, so they cannot offer a really similar experience, because if they do, people will get so incredibly bored. Quite. Well, ladies and gents, that is about it for this. I will not be leaving World of Warcraft for this game because, again, the starting area, the combat systems, and everything are far, far too similar to WoW to justify it. In fact, I would say that the starting area appears to be worse. There are a number of fairly exciting starting areas now. The Draenei and the Blood Elves, they have really good starting areas. In Cataclysm, no doubt, the Goblins and the Worgen will have really great starting areas that will advance on everything that the game has learned. In this case, they appear to have presented me with something which is bland, dull, and quite frankly, uninviting. So, my attempt to leave World of Warcraft for EverQuest 2 has successfully, well, failed. My name's been Total Biscuit, and you have been listening to Blue Please here on CynicalBrit.com with this re-recorded segment, replacing the stuff that we lost on Friday. Again, very sorry for the delays with the site hacks and having to re-record all of this. It did take a little bit of time to get everything sorted out. I hope to see you next week on Blue Please, or indeed that'll be this week, which is in a couple of days' time. That's Friday the 18th of June here on CynicalBrit.com. My name's been Total Biscuit. Thank you for listening, and good night.